full of muscle can't stop me. Hey,
One.
come on.
Fight.
Hello, and welcome everybody to the latest episode of the Swindler podcast. My name is Poultry. I'm a Steve player from Oceania. I'm an enjoyer of this video game. I hope you're all doing wonderfully. I'm joined by my co-host, Hangman. Introduce yourself.
Hello, everybody. It's Hangman. I've had a wonderful week this time around. I just watched the season 2 preview. I'm sure you've all watched it, and I'm very, very happy. And this podcast is once again a vehicle for us to get Majin Obama on the show. And next on the pathway is our host, our guest here, rather, this week.
Yeah, we're going to introduce our guest. This is someone who means quite a lot to both myself and Mr. I was about to say his name, Mr. Hangman, someone who was personally there right at the start when I first began my Tekken journey, one of the first people I ever met, one of the first people to really kick the fear of God into my brain about how good one can get at this fucking video game, and that's Chipzeeh. Chipzeeh, welcome to the podcast, man. How you doing?
Hello, thank you so much for having me. No, I'm doing really well. And I'm honored to be here. I feel like the last person that I'd expect you guys to ask me on, so I really appreciate it.
Honestly, I'm very happy for you to accept, because you really came in clutch. You really came in last minute. You're kind of like our back pocket pick here. You know, we kind of like last minute.
And
Save
he
the
is,
day.
ready to go. Ready to go.
Our last minute pick, because Michael Murray was ignoring my request to come to the podcast.
Yeah.
So we had to pick you up instead. So yeah, everybody, welcome, Chipzeeh.
That would have been a banger, and I find it quite funny how in the intro you're talking about how I was there from the start, and I've been around for a while, because the last time I did a podcast as a guest, I was talking about the perspective of being a new player,
That's
and
wild.
that felt like 2 years ago. So
Jeez.
it hasn't been time's definitely flown.
They have.
But that's what happens when you're having fun.
There you go. And for those who didn't know, Chip and Hangman, seasoned on the microphone, seasoned in the podcast realm, featured in many such places as MSNBC, the Joe Rogan Experience. Hangman, could you give us a little recap on one other little Tekken podcast that once existed many eons ago?
That's right. Actually, Chip and I, we had a podcast that lasted for 2 whole episodes. It was quite a good run. What was the title of it? It's like a.
Can't even remember the title.
I can't. I genuinely can't even remember.
It's the Negan line, right? Like what was
I
it?
could not tell you, bro.
Something about
I have no
Lucille.
idea. And half the reason why I can't remember is because it's actually not the only podcast series I've tried to start and failed
True.
immediately after one episode, because I did that one with Blind as well.
That's
that I think we
true.
literally
Tekken it
did.
like a champ. That's the one.
Tekken it like
That's
a
what it was
champ.
called.
Oh my
That was not my
god.
idea.
What a
I
throwback.
had great production though. I had really great production.
You did.
If you remember.
Those backdrops were nuts. See, I've been taking the basic approach with these thumbnails and shit. I'm abusing the fuck out of the photo mode in Tekken. It's wonderful. Also, anyone in the chat, please let us know if the audio volume is fine all round. If you need me to turn anyone up, I'll do so right away. But I just hop in Tekken. I get Azucena to do forward 3 or whatever that move is. I get Jin to fly up in the air, and then I let the camera do the rest, and I slap some text on it, and we're good to go. Hangman had fucking full-on black and white photography-looking shit going on, and like nice scene transitions, and we're operating on a low budget for Swindler, but hopefully you guys enjoyed today's episode, because we're going to be talking about the Tekken Talk that recently happened. Chip, what's the Tekken Talk, dude? Can you intro it?
Yeah, look, we got. It was the start of a lot of changes. Showed. We're going into a new season, and as expected, if you're around in Tekken 7, a lot of shake-up often happens season to season. But this one really seems next level. They were talking about something like 1,500 changes is the number that is constantly thrown around, and they did a little talk, which is really good. Nowadays they all sit down and run us through everything. And they showed a lot of crazy stuff that I think has people up in arms at the moment.
Yep. Real. Namely, you guys might see on the screen if you're watching right now, Anna Williams is going to be returning to the fold. On a very baseline level, I personally think the design looks amazing. I think the character looks really, really cool. We're going to get into the gameplay side of things shortly. But what do you guys think about Anna returning to Tekken?
I think Anna is sort of a foregone conclusion type of character. I think she will be in the game at some point anyway, no matter what Tekken game it is. She'll always come back.
Mm-hmm.
Anna is appeals. She has a very particular, I think, catch for a particular type of players.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the people that play Anna and love Anna really, really love the character.
Mm.
Even though I think a lot of players really, really hate playing against Anna and not exactly liking the character design
Mm-hmm.
itself.
Mm-hmm.
But those are the actual characters that adds value to your product, right? The one that really appeals and really, really appeals to those niche types of users, right?
Mm.
And like with Nina and all the other characters, they've now modernized the character. I think everyone kind of expected that she's also going to get her own weapon to match Nina. The bazooka is a very nice choice, I think, because
Yeah.
she's been shown to use the bazooka before. Her looks, I think, were great, but I think reception is actually a bit 50-50.
Ironic.
From what I'm reading.
That's one way to put it.
yeah, I know, right?
Yeah.
So I think her new appearance is a bit 50-50. I thought people would love it, but we'll see how that goes.
Mm-hmm.
I'll stop there for the appearance first, and we'll talk about the gameplay a bit later, which we'll have a lot more to talk about. Do you have anything to add, Chip? Because you actually picked up Anna in Tekken 7, right?
Well,
You actually liked the character for
new
a bit
to
of,
me.
for the time. Yeah.
Yeah, look, a little bit, play a little on and off. I think it was more so for study purposes because I remember at the time I had to play one like every week. We had so many Annas, so it was really important to be across the matchup, and I felt pretty confident. It's probably one of the most confident matchups I had at the time. Good fun to play, very scary to be on the receiving end of, as Hangman said. But yeah, to echo Hangman's sentiment, I think this character was almost a shoe-in at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And if this character doesn't come back, Harada's notifications are double what they probably are now with how many people beg for that character, because she's probably got one of the most vocal social media communities whenever she's admitted.
Yep.
And they want to add her back. So yeah, look, it's really interesting. The weapon stuff, every character sort of embracing part of their personality. Like, it's not like the weapon's new. The weapon's always been a part of her. It's just never been in the game. So I think it's an interesting take, and it's on brand for everything that's been in Tekken 8 so far.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I absolutely agree. Definitely a fan favorite here in Oceania, which does
Anna fans and Anna fans and Melina fans, they have a really nice cross section. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think it's kind of funny that we have a lot of Anna players in Australia because we are the gambling capital of the planet. That's no joke. This episode is sponsored by Sportsbet, by the way.
By the way, it is Thursday, so the Powerball is on. I think it's 20 million tonight.
On it.
Well, I've got footage of Anna going here in the background. One quick thing before we move on to the next thing, because we've got a few really cool things I want to cover right off the bat. You mentioned that historically she's used her rocket launcher. She's also got a unique mechanic outside of just having a rocket launcher, in that she can apply this purple poison debuff, which applies chip damage, even if she's not in heat, even if you're just chilling out in the open. From what I understand, if the Anna player gets hit at any point, the debuff will disappear. What are your general thoughts, I suppose, about these kinds of mechanics being given to characters? Because we've had a lot of installs. If we take a look at Lydia, if we take a look at Eddie with his Mandinga stacks, if we take a look at Heihachi with Warrior Instinct, what do you think about this kind of thing? I'm curious to know from you, Chip, because historically, one of the reasons that I got into Tekken was it was this very minimalist, sort of clean fighting game. Everyone's just punching and kicking each other. And the bullshit is purely confined to how big a hitbox is, or how fast a move is, or what it does on hit or block, right?
Yep.
What do you think about Anna having this new chip mechanic, and then I guess installs and special mechanics in general?
Yeah. Look, it always does add something unique to the game.
Mhm.
This one in particular stands out from all the other ones we've seen so far that are simply like you do something, you get a counter, and your moves are better. This one is a bit more creative. Well, when I saw it for the first time, I thought I was looking at some, like Final Fantasy Online level stuff, like the characters like got like a literal visual debuff on them.
Mhm.
So look, from a game perspective in terms of like interest and creativity, I think it's there,
Mhm.
but yeah, I think you're well aware, and for people that aren't, yeah, I'm like definitely more on the side of like the minimalist thing, keeping it, relatively simple and, less gimmicky. I'm not
Mhm.
fully against it, but, it is encouraging the chip damage, which I know can be a bit controversial depending on your opinion on that. I'm not super crazy about chip damage myself.
Mhm.
I love the defensive aspect of Tekken, and I think it does take away from that a bit, but I am glad to at least see something that's different. As I
Yeah.
said, that's not just you get 3 stacks and your moves are buffed. I think this is actually unique.
Yeah.
So when I see it, I just don't think it's a cut and paste. Like I feel like some of the previous DLCs have been in, Eddie, Lydia, Heihachi. I feel like they're all a bit similar. At least this is creative.
Mhm.
But also I can't help but think if I'm dooming,
Mhm.
that the more unique mechanics and stuff like you give like this, it's more to be concerned about regarding balance. Like you're
Yeah.
throwing a whole new spanner in the works because you're giving characters so many different things.
Yep.
So I think that's a consideration. But do I think this one's going to be a big problem? I don't think so, if I'm being honest.
Mhm.
It's not too hard for an opponent to sort of retaliate in this game,
That's true.
depending on the situation you're in, give or
Yeah.
take.
Yeah.
So I don't think someone's going to have it too long, but I might eat my words on that.
Yeah, I guess we're gonna find out, but I do agree with what you're saying about introducing extra variables when it comes to balancing, because even heat. I think one of the things that we're gonna touch on a little later regarding one certain mechanic that's being changed, is one issue that Tekken's historically had, at least in Tekken 7, was the complete erasure or complete systems-wide overhaul of a given mechanic because certain characters benefit from it too much. Back in
Mm.
Tekken 7, there were big changes to how Oki worked and how certain combos worked that were completely widespread across the entire cast because seemingly that was easier for the developers to implement than them going into these individual characters that are abusing these systems in a specific way and adjusting them on like a per basis. Um, so it's definitely interesting to see how things are going to go, and also if we're going to get some kind of like RPG style mechanics creep as the game goes on, where the kinds of abilities and powers these characters are going to be getting are going to get out of control. Um, but
Yeah, I agree. Like
mhm,
technically, like having like different abilities for every character is not super dissimilar to characters having different tools, right?
yeah,
Um, but what Chip said is 100% correct, which is it does add more variable. It's not wrong to add these sort of mechanics to the game. I guess you can argue right or wrong if it goes against like the type of game that you like. If you're like if you like classic Tekken, where it is what you describe is just hitboxes and hurt boxes. Yeah, okay, then any additions like superpowers would be a negative to your experience, right?
hmm,
But let's say you're not completely against that sort of idea, then this is just another tool for the dev to add more flavor to characters, right?
yeah,
But
absolutely,
this sort of thing it could very easily be that a character has something that's completely outrageous compared to another character,
hmm,
and that would be where the balance problems would happen, right?
yeah,
And we're seeing it now with the install characters. I
hmm,
think the install characters are some of the craziest powers in the game right now,
yeah,
right?
I agree.
um, Claudio and Brian and
Yep,
Asuka, right, can just spam their stuff.
yeah,
Leo also can do that, but Leo's also crazy, but it's not as bad as the other three because of the tools that they have access to in the install form, right?
hmm,
Those three characters can just absolutely spam the living hell out of their tools, and Jun is the same, right?
yeah, oh
It's
yeah,
it's nowhere near close to like the install abilities of like any other characters, really.
hmm. And there's I guess the only downside, I suppose, is like they'll sometimes run out or the round will be over and that's it. Because this was a problem that we had in Tekken 7 with Akuma, right? and to an extent Geese and Eliza. But Akuma was like the villain numero uno for most of Tekken 7's life cycle. And it seemed to most of the, at least the competitive community, that the developers didn't seem to know how to balance the character around the fact that he had a meter. Um, and there's every chance that he was kept powerful because he was very difficult or he was a character from a different franchise. But one interesting aspect of Akuma, which everyone talked about and which you would see in the meta how players would play against Akuma, was his meter management and how different of a character he was outside and within his metered states, right? I'm kind of curious to see if in the future they retroactively, they probably won't, but if they retroactively go back and they maybe make some tweaks to how some of these installs work so that maybe when you're in an install, you get XYZ fucked up moves, but there's a caveat. Maybe certain things are more unsafe or certain things work a little differently. I don't know if this is being too hopeful, but I'm definitely curious with Anna because Chip's already been a pretty controversial thing, as both yourself and Chip have noted. Um, and yeah, I'm curious. I'm very curious. I did
I
want.
actually like Chip as a mechanic, to be honest with you.
I really
It's
like it.
just it's just some implementation on problematic moves. For example,
Hmm.
moves that are too easily accessible, especially if they're mid and plus,
Yeah.
and they do chip damage. I think those are big problems.
Hmm.
But
Mm.
if let's say it's a big slow mid and
Mhm.
it's like neutral and it's chip damage, it could be okay.
Yeah.
If it's like a high attack that's not completely gangbuster broken, it could be fine as well.
Yeah, I
I
agree.
actually like chip. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah, I think
yeah, go for it.
no, I was gonna say, I think, yeah, to build off what Hangman said, there's a lot of sequences in this game that just feel good to run because you can get a bunch of chip off and keep going.
Yeah.
And it's usually something like a heat engager that starts it. Like, I'll use my own character as an example. I feel like I can always pick the same two moves off a heat engager in running 3-2 or forward 3+4 because they're moves that my opponent can't really do anything about because the weakness is sort of nullified because I've got heavy plus.
Hmm.
And then I put something onto them, bunch of chip damage, and then I get to keep going.
Yeah.
And we see this, there's other characters that have heat sequences, like they're sort of just doing thing into thing into thing, and it's like a why not,
Yeah.
because if it hits, well, lottery, and if it doesn't, you're gonna keep going, and you've chipped them a bunch. So it almost encourages this sort of, to me, like almost like this set play vibe.
Yeah,
Like I'm just gonna do this because it's a good option, and I feel like that was definitely less prevalent in the last game.
I agree. I agree. I think though, one interesting thing with that Anna has kind of sparked in the discourse because, uh, much like Hangman, I'm a big fan of Chip as a mechanic, and obviously there's aspects of it that need fine tuning, especially on like a character per character basis. Is actually finding sequences that your character has that really make good use of Chip. That might have a bunch of different defensive holes in them, but can really show off your creativity. So I think a big reason I'm a fan of Chip in this game is because I play Steve.
Mm,
And Steve is quite safe. He's got a lot of strings that go into stances, that go into other strings, that go into other stances. And a lot of the threat that you're respecting is either low reward or there's some kind of defensive hole in it. So I'm having to take something of a risk in choosing to continue my flicker jab strings into like an empty albatross spin into more chip sequences, right?
yeah.
Um, when it's stuff like that, when you're able to actually really find mastery over your character and figure out those sequences where it's like, this isn't airtight, but if I can condition enough respect, it's not going to be easy for my opponent to want to mash into me right now. Um, that's where Chip, I think, really starts to shine as something that you can abuse in air quotes. But when it is just really plus move into really plus move into really plus move, especially with the heat system as it currently is, um, yeah, it's fully understandable. Like, does Azucena have much she can do in terms of like wonky kind of prolonged chip sequence pressure outside
Yeah.
of like just running 3-2?
Um, I wouldn't say it's too bad. I
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't say it's too bad. Once you hit that heat engager, you get that guaranteed really cheap move that puts you there. But um, after that, you're usually pretty good
Mhm.
unless you're playing with something like back two, for example, that homing move that can force the plus into lib when you hold forward.
Yeah.
You can do some stuff like that, but she's a character that sort of goes like she might go plus and then she's minus the next one. She's
Yeah.
very about getting into stance.
Yep.
And usually, once you're in that stance, you're either going to hit something or you're not really, and then it's going to be over.
Yeah.
It's not as loopy.
Mhm.
So yeah, not with her as much, but as I said, like you can do anything, especially with the heat smash, for example. You can
Mhm.
do that out of the lib stance, so you can still get a little bit going. Every character does have it to one extent or the other, but it's more about the characters that they have a lot of individual moves that get an like a buff, like
Yeah.
Raven. Like I'm not saying it's all plus, but you can sort of do like heat move that's not going to spend your whole bar into heat move that's going to not spend your whole bar. There's a lot of
Yeah.
characters that have those buffs that can get a lot.
Yeah, that's true. Law nunchucks, man. Oh my
What
god.
do you guys actually think of the Anna gameplay design that was shown? So we saw a couple classic Anna moves back, right? QCF1 is now a heat engager,
Mhm.
right? And all the 50/50s are back. Her down forward 2 is still I-15. There was change in End of Tekken 7, so she now has a I-15 launcher. That new low, that wall slide. It's a low. It's a plus low. It's a plus on block low.
Let me bring
That is
this up for
something.
the people who are currently watching
Yeah.
in the chat. Keep
and,
talking.
and the heat smash, which we will talk about, right? Because the two moves that really stuck out to me is that new low and the heat smash, right?
Yeah.
The heat smash is absolutely bollocks. I can't believe they're adding another one of that variety.
Yeah, well, let's
Um,
let's quickly break down this low. So those of you who are watching right now, I'll see if I can get a bit of audio. I don't know if this is going to come through on the stream at all. Essentially, Anna's got this new while running low that where to even begin? So I believe it's 16 frames after you've done the while running input. 16 frames, and it does 64 damage while she's in heat. And it's got counter hit only. Is it counter hit only?
I believe it's counter hit only, or my mind tells me this must be counter hit only.
It should be, right?
That's what mine said. That's for sure.
They've got the counter on. It's doing 64 damage on counter hit. It is plus on block when she's in heat. I don't know what it is when she's outside of heat, but it's also a wall stun. So traditionally when people talk about Anna and how you fight the character, it's usually like she's got weaknesses in neutral, but she's got this crazy mix-up if she can command enough respect to crouch in your face. Now she doesn't necessarily even need to crouch in your face, because she could just run up down forward 2 or while running this. What do you think of this one? What do you guys think?
This
is a design that I really do not like from the preview. I'm like much with the entire season 2 changes. I'm reserving my full judgment until we get the patch notes and maybe even after we played it. But man, that looks pretty cool, man. What do you think, Chip?
Yeah, I don't think there's anything else I can really say. I feel like we've jumped the shark a little bit with a move like that. Like, really, what is the point?
Yeah.
That's absurd. Like, it looks like an approach tool.
I can already see it, Chip. Like, you eat a heat engager, blah 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 blah, and then you get slow, you blocked it, and then you blocked it, and you get wall stun at the wall, and then she's plus, and then she does heat smash. That's 13 frames.
Well, this was an
I can
interesting.
already see the gameplay.
This was an interesting thing people pointed out is when you do heat engage, you can buffer certain moves like your while running moves and stuff. And if you've hit someone with a heat engager, you're plus 17, and this is a 16 frame move that you can buffer. So you might not even be able to low parry this. Like if she does it as her mix-up option, she just has a safe / wall crushing low that you have to block.
Actually, that's a good point. I think Anna is not a slash kick character. She has the slash kick that falls to the floor, I think. And she doesn't have. Does she have the plus frame blonde bomb? I don't think she has that.
I don't
right?
think so.
Yeah, so it might be this might be her alternative. That might be why.
Maybe.
Yeah, look, it's pretty crazy, but look, I was just talking about how there's these set play sequences, but I'm talking about doing them with mids.
Yeah.
Now you're essentially doing what I described before of your heat engager, but this time it's a low. As we said, God knows what's going to happen when you hit it regularly. We're assuming it's counter hit because that's what Tekken Brain says. But yeah, like it just sounds like a no-brainer. Like if it's going to be safe, I'm just going to do this a lot. But at least when you're doing it with a mid, the low option's probably not going to send you into the air for 80 damage. Whereas this one definitely will. Like, if I played Anna, my gameplay 100% would be I do that low 80% of the time, and then the moment I've got you, like, I just know you're blocking it, then I'm just going to cash that in for free and launch you into the air with a mid. So, yeah, I just think it's just too straightforward and it's too much, and the defender just can't do anything.
And you think about it as well, it's like the risk reward is completely flipped, because usually the gist is that the low is the launch punishable option, or the option that's reasonably punishable, and then the mid is like your safe go-to. Whereas in this situation, because her down forward 2, I'm guessing is probably still going to be minus 13 or minus 12 or whatever it was, probably 13. So her mix-up is a minus 13 mid and a plus on block low that wall stuns and does 60 damage potentially, which is pretty insane. That's a very bizarre way to skew the reward. Yeah,
that's even if you opt for the launcher, because they were showing stuff like, I think there's a 2-hit string that's only -8, but it like transitions into a stance. Like, if you want to really play it safe, you got a big safe 50-50 on +17, man. Like,
I mean that's completely not even considering this one here. We've got her heat smash.
Yeah, that's right. She's got two new stances, right? Cannon chance and pleasure time.
Yeah.
I can't keep up, dude.
It's getting crazy, dude. It's getting crazy.
I did my homework, all right.
Does his homework. Pleasure time. Ordering a PLT. It's this is a. But Hangman mentioned it already. What's the issue with this heat smash, Hangman? Tell me.
What's not the issue?
That's true. That's true.
Okay, so right now in the game, there's 3 13-frame heat smashes, and all of them are completely broken, even if they are 15 frames, right? So we got Kuma's one that tracks both directions, and it breaks the floor, I believe.
Yep.
And it also eats highs, right? That's Kuma's one. Ignoring the speed, if you have that at I-15, it would still be one of the really good heat smashes.
Yeah.
The other I-13 heat smash is Law. And Law's one is gangbusters broken. It tracks really well one direction. If he whiffs the first hit, you better not try and whiff punish. You're about to die. You have to sidestep left the second hit in like a super tight like frame, right? That's what you have to do. Because if you see he whiffs the first hit, you're pushing a button, you're gonna die, trust me. And Law's heat smash is also really good situation on block, and it also wall splats for some reason.
Yeah.
Now Anna's one is not as good as these other 13-frame heat smashes. Probably, I hope. I swear to God.
Fingers crossed.
But I don't understand why she has it anyway, and why it's still also high crushes. Like, what's the logic here? Why does she get it?
Yeah.
What weakness is this heat smash meant to cover?
Yeah, I have a theory about how some moves get balanced, and it's basically Mishima Star or whoever's like the head developer for balance in the game, just losing a bunch of office brackets and picking a move at random that got crushed by some bullshit and going, nah, my character's move should beat that. Because I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Do you have anything to add on the heat smash, Chip?
Look, all I know is it sounds pretty strong. I'm just hoping there's something you can do about it. It's very difficult. Heat smashes in this game, there's always something funky that can often make it difficult.
Does it give the opponent purple rain on block after you block a heat smash?
Who knows? That'd be something else, because you just know it's going to set up into something. So yeah, look, I'm pretty scared, but we'll see what happens. Maybe there's some hidden thing we don't know.
Yeah. We've got
last thing I want to talk about Anna before we move on. Maybe I don't know. Is I really hate Anna in Tekken 7. There you go, I said it right.
Real?
Anna is actually quite a very good. At the end of Tekken 7, she became a really good poking character, and became generally a good Tekken character in general. I think Chip can agree.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Good lows, good poke lows, down for down. She had the best down for in the game, right? Because of the Chaos Judgment transition. And she can move around you, and she has really good tools 443 down 41 mind games, um, and all those sort of moves, right? But the one thing I don't like about Anna is the same reason why I don't like Devil Jin, because these characters can be played by I'm gonna say this the most polite way that I can, right? I don't want to be rude on stream. They can be played by dumb fucking players, and and it'll completely ruin your tournament experience, because you might be coin tossing for your tournament live, and as they're coin tossing you, you can hear the fucking crickets in their brains. So that's why I didn't like Anna
That's
in
fucking
Tekken
funny,
7,
dude.
and I think that Anna is coming back in Tekken 8.
Oh, dude. Real. This isn't a political podcast, but he's speaking straight heat. I just had noticed husband in the chat. Shout out husband, absolutely incredible player from New Zealand. Um, he mentioned something interesting. Regarding the 13 frame heat smashes. He said it's because of 13 frame rage arts. This is a bit of a tangent, but what did you guys think of 13 frame rage arts in Tekken 7?
Yeah.
You go, Chip.
Look.
They had a weakness. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's sort of hard to pinpoint it, but at least I feel like the rage art itself in 7 was overshadowed by the rage drive. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah, that's true.
it was almost always rage drive, especially at a super high level, because the rage drive is very strong, and it's probably the most comparable thing to like a heat smash or a heat dash, depending on which character you're talking about in that game.
Mhm.
It was sort of like the early version of that, and it was always quite nice because a lot of them, they didn't throw the game for you. It was often a huge shot at stealing it back whilst either keeping going or at least keeping safe. So we always used to see that the most. So I'm not particularly like, I don't have any particular passionate thoughts about the Tekken 7 rage art, but it's Tekken 8 where you sort of have to think about both the rage drive equivalent and the actual rage art.
Mhm.
Over the last 2 days, I've actually been playing a bit for the first time in a while, and you have to really be on edge, depending on the opponent, especially if they're a bit crazy, like twice per round. You have to worry about that big nuke in their heat, and then if they just want to go balls to the wall at the end and put the rage art out, you have to play around that too. So
Yeah,
I honestly think they're scarier in this game because they're always on the table, whereas in Tekken, I feel like you were just baiting a rage drive.
yeah, that's true. That's actually really true. I get hit by them way more in this game. Way
Yeah.
more. People are much more liberal with them.
Yeah, and they really get you because also because this game's aggressive, sometimes you're in that mindset of like, you've just done like this big sequence and you really feel it and you're about to set up for the finale and you've totally forgotten that they have the God button in their
Yep.
back pocket.
Yeah, it's rough, man. And Clinton in the chat actually asked a funny question. What are your guys' thoughts on Asuka's charged rage art? Because we were talking earlier about different mechanics that characters are getting access to in this game. Asuka being a character who's got an install as well. Um, what we could stick
Well,
on
I
it
can
for like 2 seconds, but what do you
yeah,
think?
I can add to it that it pissed me off today because I
Oh
forgot about
no!
it.
Oh
I was
no!
playing against an Asuka, and like I think I went into back turn or something, and then I didn't commit, and I'm like, "Whoo, gotcha!" And then I just see the charge animation. I'm like, "Ah, far out! It's not over yet." So
Dude, it's that
I'm not
might
crazy
be
about it.
that might be one of the because you mentioned you've only just played like you've only just picked the game back up after a little hiatus. Like people
Yeah.
always talk about hiatus characters like Ling, Asuka, Eddie, characters where like you disappear off for a while, or maybe you play often and they're just not prevalent in your scene, and then you run into them and they 2-0 you and they vanish and you never see them again. That
Yep.
rage art might be one of the most hiatus buttons that exists.
Yeah. It
Yeah.
threw me off so bad.
Oh, that's real, man. That's fucking real. Well, before we get too much further into the character stuff, I do really, really quickly want to quickly jump to Tekken World Tour, which is coming back. EWC is coming back. For those of you who don't know what EWC is, it was a international tournament held in Riyadh in Saudi Arabia. Absolutely bonkers prize pool. How much did Ulsan win? Do you guys remember?
$300,000 USD.
Wow.
Pre-tax.
How much did Yagami win? Do you guys remember?
Comments in the chat.
I think it was 75 US.
Yeah, 75, right? Yeah.
Crazy amount. Yagami giving us one of the greatest comeback sets in Tekken history, I would say. Is that safe to say?
Yeah.
I
No,
think,
that was it was it was on the nominated for an award
Yeah.
in the comeback section.
if you guys haven't
so
seen it, Yagami
was next
versus
level.
Chanel at EWC. Reverse 5-0. Not to spoil, but go take a look. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's good regardless if you know what's going to happen or not.
Yeah, we've got this coming back, which is going to be huge. And then the other really cool thing that we've got coming, if I can find it, is TWT. So tour registration and dojo applications are going to be starting from April 15th. If there's anyone in the chat who wants to set up a tournament and thinks they can get enough people in to get it set as a Tekken World Tour event, well, here's your deadline. April 15th, applications begin. And they've said that tour registration is possible regardless of country or of residence or nationality. This is a pretty interesting one because we had a tournament towards the end of last year. Or was it the start of this year?
So Martians can play in the tournament, yeah, I believe.
Martians can play in the tournament. Russians can play in
That's
the
big, dude.
tournament. The Chinese can play in the tournament. We've had instances of players from China and Russia getting kicked out of tournaments mid-tournament because they weren't part of the general accepted nations rule list. That is no longer the case. So no matter where you're from, you can enter into any event and it's going to be a blast. Dojo events can be held in any country too. I've been waiting for Iranian Tekken to get put on the map, so maybe 2025 is the year.
Yeah, I heard Pitcairn Islands have some like real hitters.
Pitcairn Island do have some heavy hitters. I've heard they've got a pretty cracked Panda player floating around on one of the doors that circle the island. This is going to be huge. Chip, you've done quite a bit of commentary for tournaments. I know that you followed competitive Tekken quite a bit. Is there a country or a region that hasn't really been put on the map that you'd be curious about a major tournament from?
Oh, like hosting over there?
Yeah, like I know you were recently in the UK.
Yeah.
Maybe a Welsh major, you know?
Yeah, get something down in old Wales. Why not?
Yeah.
I should have checked if there was a active Tekken com down there, but no, it is an interesting question. I do think it was really good, like in recent times that, like, we're sort of having the events in Pakistan now that they're putting themselves on the map. So
Yep.
yeah, I don't know. That's a tough question.
Yeah.
There's a lot of strong regions. So we'll just have to wait and see what happens, I guess. But another UK major couldn't hurt.
Yeah, that's
give me
true.
an excuse to go back.
I really want to see. I know they host big tournaments internally, but I don't know how much they advertised internationally.
I want Russia.
Russia. That's it.
I want a Russian major.
Because
A Russian challenger.
for those who don't know, Russia have some of the best players in all of Europe. And when I say some of the best, I'm not meaning like top 50. I'm meaning like potentially top 5. Specifically Higem and Strog, who have been mentioned by RQ in the chat. Absolutely ridiculously strong players who had some difficulties getting to tournaments, being able to stay in tournaments of recent. But
yeah, the other one is China for me.
Yeah.
I agree.
I fully agree. For those who don't know as well, after Evo Japan last year, there was a side tournament that was held featuring all of the killers who were still in town. And grand finals was China versus Australia. Yagami versus XCC from China. Beating out players like Joey Fury, a lot of local Japanese talent, Korean players. So yeah, there's a lot of talent there that we just don't know about. XCC's managed to go to a few things, but I'm super keen to see what else could come out of that region.
Yeah,
there's a super strong Chinese player as well. His name is Mr. Kajeski.
Mr. Kajeski, there you go. There you go.
Yes, a very, very, very strong Chinese player. Really would like to see him more in tournaments.
No, I fully agree. But yeah, we've got the TWT stuff coming up. We've even got some events that have been announced. So I'm just chucking it up on the screen now. Coming up in May, we've got some Master and Challenger events. We've got Evo Japan, May 9th to 11th. Brussels Challenge, May 17th to 18th. Combo Breaker in the US, May 23rd to 25th. Head Stomper, May 30th to June 1st. And most importantly, Battle Arena Melbourne in Victoria,
Whoa.
Australia, May
That's
30th
us.
to June 1st. Can I expect to see either of you two at BAM this year?
I will be there.
Yeah, I'll be there as well.
Banger.
I believe
Of course.
Chanel has announced that he will be there.
Ooh, the run back?
Through,
The
yep,
defense.
yep. Through the grapevines, nothing's confirmed as well. Please
Nothing's
don't put this
confirmed.
out on Twitter as well. But the EWC champion is considering coming back as well.
It's going to be good. It's going to be
Maybe.
good. If anyone is local, anyone's Oceanic, I believe that tickets are live now. If you go onto Google, type in Battle Arena Melbourne start.gg, you should be able to find the link. It's going to be huge. I will be in attendance. Chip and Hangman will be in attendance. It's going to be a blast.
I want to shout out one more event.
Yeah.
Sorry, are you done with BEM?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. So I want to shout out two things. Number one, Mega Clinton in the chat, who's been doing really well in the USA. He's now, I think, the number one Jin player in North America. Rest in peace for next week. But I want to shout out to where he's going. I think it's tomorrow, right? It's your major is tomorrow. Texas Showdown. It features Joe Crush, Genghis Dawn, Mega Clinton, NG Obscure, a bunch of Crown players, I think. So they're all coming out, and they'll be our next big tournament, I guess, before the TWT season starts. So shout outs to that event and shout outs to Clinton. I really, really hope he does well. It's his last chance to do well with Jin, so I really hope he gets a really high placing. I love you, kid.
That character's going in the bin with his new full screen homing advancing mid. He's gonna be absolute bum tier. No, Texas Showdown, check it out, lads. I've just realized I may or may not have even had stuff showing on the screen this entire time. So for those who didn't see it, once again we've got Evo Japan, Brussels Challenge, Combo Breaker, Head Stomper, Battle Arena Melbourne, and Texas Showdown, all on the horizon. So plenty of stuff to be excited about. Another tangentially related competitive Tekken shindig that has been quite the topic online is coaching changes. So for those who don't know, coaching has been a bit of a thorn in the side of competitive Tekken and competitive fighting games more widely, because there's nothing that people dislike more than having the flow of a tournament interrupted. It can feel strange fighting against a player and someone's whispering in their ear between sets and you don't really know what's going on. But as of now, for 2025's Tekken World Tour, each tournament may establish its own rules regarding coaching, and if not specified, the rules will be 1 time per match, only after losing the previous set, and you get 1 minute and 1 coach. What do you guys think about this, and what do you guys think about coaching more broadly?
I'll start maybe. So I believe a bunch of TOs are probably a little bit iffy with this one. From the TO side, it's because they're forced to make a decision, right? Each tournament may establish its own rules. It kind of adds a bit of add a bit of cost to the TOs. They can always default to the normal rule, but I think this should probably be mandatory for every event. Personally, it should probably be standardized.
Yeah,
because at some point there's going to be a tournament with a weird coaching rule that's written in like some bumfuck nowhere in the start GG page, and people are not going to know, and then they're gonna break a rule, and things of that nature could happen. I can foresee things like that happening.
And if you don't have your rules accessible in like a multitude of languages as well, I could definitely see that being a problem, because you might have an international show up at Combo Breaker, and he doesn't know that, hey, these are the rules. You raise a good point.
Yeah, XCC shows up. He barely speaks English, right? He might not know, he just might not know, because of the nature of how it goes sometimes. The rule itself, coaching is actually, I know people try to make coaching like a discussion of like what's fair, what's more skillful, things like that, right? and they try to compare it to different types of other esports or other real sports. But I think in reality, coaching rules is actually just personal preference,
Yeah.
in my opinion, right?
Mhm.
Because my personal preference, and the most honest I can be, is that I prefer there's no coaching.
Yeah.
In Tekken, but also in real sports. I
Mhm.
don't like coaching in boxing or MMA. I don't even like coaching in soccer.
Mhm.
In football. Fucking you got 11 players. You got 11 brains. Figure it out. You don't need another one.
Real.
You got enough brains in the field. Okay, you
That's
can figure
true.
it out.
Yeah.
And you have a team captain. What's the captain there for? Huh? Not thinking? Get the fuck out of here. The rule itself is more conservative than last time around, which is better for my liking. One time per match also means that in a first to three scenario, they can only call them once. So if you lose like 2 games in the first to three, and you've used up your coach last time, you can't use them again, right? So it is a bit interesting. What do you think, Chip?
Yeah. In terms of coaching generally, I'm pretty indifferent to the whole thing. I don't really care if it's there or if it's not.
Mhm.
I think in recent times, it's definitely like the debate, in my opinion, was pretty recent. I feel like it felt like everybody was indifferent for the longest time, and then it popped up on Twitter that one time, and then all of a sudden it was sort of like frowned upon. I really don't remember the opinion being like that before, but maybe it was just something people were keeping bottled up. But when it comes to rulings for this stuff, I think it's difficult. It's something that's very difficult to outright get rid of, especially when you're talking about pool setups. Like when we're picturing coaching, you're picturing the stream setup, everyone gets up on the stage, but this stuff can happen in pools too, and stuff like that is genuinely harder to police. If this is going to be properly enforced, as Hangman said, I agree it should be standardized. I think just making it up makes it difficult for the players because it's very easy to then accidentally break it because you're constantly flip flopping between all the rules. But also at the same time, if it's enforced like that, I'd like it to be no gray areas. So,
Yeah.
you've got a TO for the stage at least, and you're enforcing that right on the dot. 60 seconds, you tell them to get off, and they need to get off. You sometimes have these moments where they sort of stick around, and no one's like, no one's going to put the hammer down on them. It always plays out, right?
Mhm.
I think another thing that's difficult as well is like, where do you draw the line at coaching? Because I could easily be sitting in the front row of BAM shouting stuff to players, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
who's going to get penalized for that? Am I going to get kicked out? What if I'm not even playing? So there's so many different variables that coaching can be done through. So I'm just indifferent. I definitely like get the point though that you want to keep it between the players, keep the mind games there. But yeah, it's just indifference for me. I do think though that coaching has, if you're talking about Tekken from a spectator point of view, it has brought some of like the more like funny, like lighthearted moments onto the stage. It's always a bit of an icebreaker because sometimes someone like makes a bit of a joke out of it or like
Yeah.
looks at the camera or tries to listen in. So I think it can be hype in that sense. But I definitely understand where people are coming from when they say it takes away from the whole mind game aspect and you're sort of interfering a bit.
Yeah.
I also don't like coaching because it creates an imbalance in players.
Mhm.
Because it is a game of who knows who. You're a local, you're a local champion, right? Like in a random TWT country, like I don't know, Croatia or something, right? And you're the best player in Croatia, right? You finally beat me one game, and then his coach is like Chanel, low high, whatever, right? And your coach is like the
Croatian
second
guy.
best Eddie player in Croatia that you haven't pissed off yet, right?
Yeah.
So it does create a huge difference in terms of the quality of coaches that you can get. And the majority of the time, most players probably don't even have like a real coach, because
Mhm.
those guys actually train and practice. They speak the game in a similar language and they understand how they talk about the game, right? Even here in Australia, even if you're in a group of friends, um, if I suddenly like have to pick, hey Ramon, can you like be my coach? Poultry, can you be my coach for this one game, right? What you say and what you mean could be completely different to how I interpret it because we don't really have that like actual esports coaching and practicing together
Haven't
culture. You know
trained
what I
it.
mean?
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And the coaching itself is like a communication. It's a relationship, right?
Well, this
Um,
was something that a few of you in the chat have probably already heard it or listened to it. Spaghetti Rip from the UK did a episode of his podcast Heat Speak, and he got on. It was Joker, Speed Kicks, VDX, Kwis. Is there anyone else? I think that was it. And there's actually one section where they're talking about coaching, and Speed Kicks made a pretty funny point where he was like, I don't think he said it explicitly, but I think Speed Kicks has been coaching for VDX for like quite a long time, and the two of them know each other very well. They understand each other and how they think about the game, and they've constructed these game plans. So Speed Kicks said VDX has 3 game plans on Noctis and Tekken 7. He's got ranged bullshit game plan, he's got up close game plan, and he's got do nothing game plan. And he was saying how he could just go up to VDX after game 1 of a match and tell him, hey, you need to slip into this game plan, and then maybe provide a little bit more nuance with the allotted 60 seconds that he was given to coach or whatever. And then VDX takes a completely different approach in the second match and completely rolls over the other player. And that's not necessarily to say that there's like some kind of inherent skill buff. The two of them have trained extensively in order for that to work. And they, as you're saying, like they've got that communication that's trained, that esports type coaching that's trained, right? But it is crazy where you can be on the receiving end of that as an international or someone who's coming from out of state, or even a local who just doesn't play the game as much, who's very good. Maybe you're an online grinder. You take the first match convincingly, and then your opponent gets whispered something in their ear, and now it feels like you're fighting a completely different character, even though the exact same character is staring at you. I can see why there's friction, right? It's a bit of a complicated topic because exactly as you're saying, Hangman, there's going to be a big difference between Chip just walking up to you and giving you some advice, even though the two of you are well spoken and you understand each other. You haven't had that esports grind of coaching specifically. That's going to play out very different to someone who's got a dedicated guy where the two of them are doing Tekken as something of a career or borderline full-time, and they're able to give each other tips and tricks that are literally going to turn the tides, unless the opponent's got some kind of gigabrain adaptation
that
skills.
happened to me last BAM. I got rest on the first game,
Mm-hmm.
and then Chanel rocked up. As soon as Chanel rocked up, my heart froze.
Yeah.
I was like, I am so doomed. I was just Chanel whispered something, and then rest beat me, and then I lost, right?
Yeah.
But like if I like, even if I like, let's say I called up Chip after I lost that first game, right? And I whispered Chip, the probably Chip would say to me, "Hey, dude, do your homing throws." And I'm like, wait, that's next season, Chip. It's not here yet.
It was last season. It was the start of the game, or it's where it's going now. But it's not right now.
Some mechanic that's been patched out. It's like, oh fuck. Yeah, no, that's fair. Yeah, the coaching shindig's it's a little bit crazy. I, for one, am with you, Hangman, in the sense that my preference is definitely no coaching. I do agree with you as well, Chip. I think the whole coaching controversy feels like a recent thing, because I feel like for most of T7 it wasn't really spoken about. And it sort of feels like it reached like an apex, and now it's quite prevalent in the discourse, I suppose. But yeah, that's.
But it's still good to talk about. But yeah, overall, I do agree that it's negative. It's just difficult to police everywhere.
Yeah.
So if you're gonna enforce it, like it needs to be something that's fair for everybody.
Yeah.
Whether that be you're like players are encouraged to maybe like it's difficult because you don't want to rat on your opponent, but this stuff is gonna go unnoticed if you're not gonna be that guy and maybe flag down a tournament organizer and say, hey, this guy just spoke to his mate in pool A in the corner for 3 minutes before he played me again. It's not just a stream thing. It will happen everywhere, so it's hard.
The paranoia is gonna go. You're gonna have players doing hand signals and shit.
Clinton did bring up a good point as well. People opening up Discord mid set. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
In fact, like I think this must be a special exception. Last TWT finals, the John was on his phone every time he lost. Do you guys remember that? You can put this on YouTube. Like his match against what's the Hwarang player name? I'm sorry, I forgot. He's really good. Edge, right? Yeah, TK Muse. That's right. Every time it was after a game, the John would be on his phone, and he would actually pick up his phone to his ear. He's talking with someone on the phone. So that must be like a special exception. But like, I don't know, man. Something like this needs to be standardized. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. Definitely an interesting one. One other thing they've noted on this slide is some bracket changes. All top four matches will be best of five. Losers semi-final will be first to three. This is cool. I really agree that more matches should be best of five. Do you guys have any thoughts around that?
I think everybody here at least would love it.
Yeah.
I think all competitive players would probably love this change.
Mm-hmm.
As a viewer, I also like this change because you
Yeah.
know what the format is. The format for top eight, the last four games of top eight, is winners finals, losers semis, losers finals, grand finals.
Mm-hmm.
First to three, first to two, first to three, first to three. I always hated that.
Mm-hmm.
So now it'll be first to three, first to three, first to three. So the viewers, every time the commentators would be like, "Remember, guys, loser semis. This one's a first to two." Everybody always had to say that every single major,
Yep.
and I
Yeah.
get tired of it.
Yep.
So I'm happy that for the viewing experience as well. Once you hit first to three on stream, it'll be continuously first to three, and I think that makes more sense for the viewership experience as well.
For sure.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I
No,
think
couldn't agree more.
it was probably a sour spot for those among us good enough to even get that far in tournaments. Cough, cough, you two. Uh, where you run into your loser's semifinals opponent and they're playing Tekken 8 release Anna, and it's like, man, I only I only get two shots at this basically. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's really good.
I'll always welcome like longer sets.
Mhm.
That's definitely what I'm a fan of, especially just to try and minimize volatility, which I think is a slight like it's definitely more prevalent in this game for me. So yeah, I'm always a fan of bigger sets. It's always the issue with time, right? You can't make everything like this, or else we'll be going for ages. So
Mhm.
yeah, I think this is the slot it should have been, as Hangman said, so everything flows smoothly. Like once you've got it, it's just the same throughout.
Yeah, real. I do want to quickly dive over to other stuff that's happening that's more internal to the game. We've got this little slide here on the screen at the moment called Season 2 Policy. Um, Number one, expand the strategic options of the heat system to allow players to showcase their individuality. Two, reevaluate the offensive and defensive balance of the heat system. And three, improve controls for more accessible gameplay experience. So this has been something that's been a little bit controversial because just prior to the Tekken Talk that they've given here, this big 2 hours and 39 minutes presentation, they actually put out a 15-minute video, explaining some of the changes that they wanted to make, and one of the core vibes from the video was expanding defensive play a little bit more. I'm curious to know what you think, I guess, Chip, about that video, and then I suppose that in contrast with what we've seen so far from the Tekken Talk.
Well, when I saw that video, I was very happy.
Mm-hmm.
I made a positive tweet, which it still holds true. I do like
Yeah.
how they're talking about the game, but it was not long before I followed up with a quote tweet of my own tweet, expressing displeasure for how much what I saw on this season 2 talk differed from what was said in that previous video, and I can't help but feel this slide is just like the video in a way.
Mhm.
It almost looks like it's generated by ChatGPT because some of it just does not align, in my opinion, with what they've been doing with the game.
Mm.
Like point one, we're talking about individuality, but we're we're getting rid of a lot of sort of we're getting rid of key charge setups. There's a lot of players like they're the guy that's going to do a key charge setup like Chitty Chitty from Japan with Shaheen back in the day, or anyone like they're going to let loose with something like that. So stuff like that's gone, and characters are getting homogenized, and you're sort of like encouraged to do the same option over and over with a lot of these plus and heat things. So I'm not quite seeing the individuality side of it yet. As for slide 2, I don't even know what to make of that. The word defensive is there, and they technically haven't lied that they are reevaluating the defensive balance of the game,
Mhm.
but sounds like it's going in the opposite direction in the nerfing category after what I saw on
Yeah.
that talk as well. And look, I think the we're talking about the game being aggressive, and like they always go back to that word aggressive, when they were talking about their plans for season 1, just Tekken 8 in general. But it really feels more about accessibility. I think that is the biggest buzzword of this game, whether it be how they add things for viewership. To make things more entertaining at a tournament, because they have said that before, even prior to season 2, that the viewership part of it is a motivating factor. They have said those words,
Yeah.
and they clearly also want to get more people on board. That is a no-brainer, whether it be simplifying things in the game, whether it be, if you look at all these DLC characters, they've almost all got a combo where you mash a button, right?
Yeah.
I'm not saying that's good or bad, but it's illustrating that accessibility is a big point for them, and that's why, at the end of the day, their target market right now isn't this vocal Twitter, I go to tournaments all the time and grinding and I'm a pro player. Like, that is not the target market right now. They're clearly trying to expand a lot, and it drives those balancing decisions. So when I see the direction that the game's going in, I don't look at it as something like these developers don't know what they're doing, because that's not true. They actually know exactly what they're doing, and they're just tapping into that market, and it's working. The sales have been good, and
Mhm.
the community is ever growing, which is great. Whether your opinions on what it's done to the balance and the high level, that's up to you. But that is probably one of the most important things to always acknowledge when you're talking balance change, because this stuff is very deliberate.
Yeah.
And their mission is just going to be to essentially not lose their legacy and high level player base, whilst keeping this game as accessible as possible.
Yeah. Yeah. That's completely fair. And as you mentioned, you touched on it briefly. They've made a change to how key charge works in this game. Where essentially, for those who didn't know, if you press all 4 of your face buttons, your character will basically power themselves up.
They'll take a shit.
They'll take a shit. Huarang really takes a shit when he does his key charge. And essentially now you've got no defense. You are a sitting duck because you are in a counter-hittable state, but all of your moves, conversely, will counter-hit. So on a character like Huarang, who's got this low, what's the low? Is it down back 3?
It's a 4.
Oh,
I can't remember the
I have
inputs.
no
Down
idea.
back
What,
4, I think.
down back 4.
Down back 4, I believe.
Down back 4. Do you guys even play Tekken?
I don't play Tekken
I
at all. I'm renaming the podcast, dude. We're gonna become Fatal Fury streamers. He gets a launch. He basically gets a launching low. And it's very fast, 16 frames. He can confirm it. Quite scary, right? And a lot of players used to make use of this to create these really interesting setups, because part of the risk of key charge, it's twofold. 1, you don't get to defend yourself, and 2, you need to waste, like, I'm guessing like about 30 frames or so taking a shit. So you really needed to know your character in order to know, all right, this is a good Oki situation where my opponent's not going to have access to a button for a second, or I know my opponent is afraid of me hitting them while they're on the ground, or I'm just a crackhead and I'm going to do it in neutral. You needed to make like a pretty informed decision in order to capitalize on this, and it always made it exciting when it paid off. So one really well-known example was, and I forget the tournament, I believe it was TGU, Tiger Uppercut, I could be wrong. Knee played against this Facebook Feng player called Titan Thor. Any of you who've ever spent any time on Tekken Facebook, that's for the real ones, would know that he's this Feng player who loves his key charge setups. He would do some crazy knockdown, he'd do a key charge, and he'd mix you up, or do some rage art or some crazy nonsense. They've now made it so that you no longer get a counter hit when you've key charged. Instead, you just get a damage buff, which is sad to see, because it removes some degree of player expression. It was never an overbearing mechanic. Unless, of course, you're someone who is maybe new to the game and an Asuka has just knocked you down, and then they've done a key charge and now they're running at you with a mid-low launching mix-up. But Hangman, you actually had some interesting thoughts on this one before we started the pod today. What do you think about this change?
Right. So the first thing is that removing how key charge works is definitely going to be less exciting and the game would be less fun
Mm-hmm.
overall for everybody, because key charge, as soon as somebody does a key charge, the tension in the match just increased tenfold, and on the audience as well, because it's a very high risk situation for both players, and someone's about to get launched, right? It's a matter of when and how it's going to happen, right? So key charge is like a very am I live? Oh, I am, yeah.
Mhm.
Sorry, the video just stopped. I thought
Oh, yeah,
my
I just
internet
paused
stopped.
it. Yeah, you're good.
Yeah. So key charge is a very interesting mechanic in that sense. This is not the first time they've removed a sort of weird janky mechanic like this. They've also removed the jump over setups in Tekken 7. That also had a lot of controversy for similar arguments.
Mhm.
Back then, I defended the change, or rather, I liked the change, and I also like the change for key charge this season from a purely competitive point of view, right? If anyone ever asks me a question about my opinions, I generally look at purely from a competitive point of view,
Mhm.
right? And when I think about competitive, I want more skill, more fundamentals to prevail, and I like less variance in the gameplay, right?
Yeah.
Key charge is a massive dice roll situation, and key charge also doesn't, or rather, it does work very well with the Tekken 8 setup, and namely three mechanics: heat engager, heat dash, maybe not heat engager, but definitely heat dash and tornado.
Mhm.
Tornado in this game is very different from screw. You actually have an infinite amount of time to do whatever you like, right?
Yeah.
You can do a tornado and do a key charge, and they still have to take your 50-50.
Yep.
Right, with the key charge turned on. And I know, I think the majority of characters that are shown to do this, or players that are doing this, are generally Hwarang or Feng players. But you can actually do this with a wide variety of characters, especially in this game.
Yeah,
You turn on
true.
the key charge. You turn on the key charge while you're in heat. You tornado. You turn on your key charge, and then they tech roll. You do your heat dash,
Mhm.
and then your plus again. The key charge is still on. You make them
Mm.
block your heat. You make them block your heat smash, and your key charge is still on.
I didn't even know
Right.
this.
Yeah, so there's a lot of these sort of setups that we don't really see in competitive play, because competitive players generally are risk adverse, which makes sense, right?
Mhm.
But theoretically, these sort of mechanics will actually make pro players lose more often if the underdogs are willing to use mechanics like this in that way.
Yeah.
So so from that point of view, I actually agree with this change, because I don't like tournament griefing mechanics like this.
Mm.
But once again, key charge is it's a very classic mechanic. It's been this way since Tekken 1. It's a
Yeah.
very exciting mechanic. The audience loves it. So I understand the negative feedback that that this is getting.
Mhm.
But if somebody says they don't understand why it's changed, those are the reasons, in my opinion.
That makes sense. I've actually got a multifaceted, potentially really tangenty point on this, and it's going back to Chip's points a moment ago. One other aspect that they've added to this, which I forgot to get a timestamp for actually, in this update, they're going to be changing the way combos work. So if you launch someone while you're off axis, the game's actually going to slightly autocorrect so that your opponent ends up at the correct axis, which has been a little bit controversial because anyone who has spent a serious amount of time really trying to master a character in Tekken knows that one point of fun, and also a point of frustration, depending on who you are and what the stakes are, is how the combo game can change from character to character when you're off axis. So some characters, if they launch someone after stepping to the left, say they make a jab whiff and they throw out a down forward 2 after a sidestep left, might be able to actually eke out more damage because they've got a specific combo that works from off axis to the left. Conversely, maybe their character actually struggles to get consistent combos when they're off axis. This was something that Kunimitsu players in Tekken 7 complained about when the character first came out. I don't know if they really changed anything about how the character worked, but I do recall trying some combos where you were off axis to one side and your B&B wouldn't work. Usually a lot of this gets weeded out, and B&Bs that you'll find online, and B&B just means your bread and butter combos. The combos you find online in Discord servers, the ones that tournament players use, will typically be airtight. So they're designed in such a way that in most situations it's gonna work no matter what. So this is kind of interesting for a couple of reasons. Because one, it's potentially getting rid of that aspect of you being able to recognize your axis and adjust your combo to do even more damage when you're off axis, because your opponent's going to realign automatically. But two, it's going to mean that BNBs are a lot more stable, and maybe higher damage BNBs are actually going to become your reliable go-to. Maybe some kind of slightly off-axis combo is now actually consistent because your opponent's always going to realign to you properly. But I have a little bit of a tinfoil conspiracy about this one, because everything they've shown in this talk, or the majority of the stuff they've shown in this talk, kind of flew in the face of what they were saying about trying to open up your defensive options, because we're seeing much more mix-ups, we're seeing characters get new guard breaks. We're going to go into it in a moment, but some characters like Jun, who's on screen at the moment, will get multiple repetitions of their heat smashes from stance. They're no longer going to spend their entire meter. Instead, it's just a 30% spend or a 50% spend. My theory is certain characters have more of a reputation for their combos dropping. If we look at a character like Clive, or even Noctis from Tekken 7, a lot of DLC characters, they tend to have very reliable combos, no matter the axis. Negan could launch you from the side and he could get a full-on max damage B&B into wall, no problem. If they're doing this, I'm going to theorize, and this is just, I might be coping. We've got 1,500 lines worth of patch that hasn't been announced yet. So we've probably only seen a small percentage of what's actually going to get patched. I am wondering if they're going to make a bunch of moves more linear, and they're making this change because combos are going to be affected. So they're like, hey, we want to open up defensive options
Oh,
in
I
this
like this.
in this Tekken
This is
Talk.
tinfoil as fuck.
Well, so in this Tekken Talk, obviously the competitive community have been begging us for more defensive shit. But this is our big Tekken Talk. I know it's mostly watched by competitive players, but they're expecting casuals to watch it as well. They want to show off cool shit. They don't want to show off Jin doing 2-1-4 and it's -10. That is a big win for competitive players. It is a major loss for Jimmy down the road, who's been playing Tekken since Tekken 3 with his little brother, and he doesn't give a shit about competitive, and he just wants to be the protagonist. They want to see that advancing homing move that he's been given. They want to see Azucena do a stance mix-up from a low. They want to see this, that, and the other. My conspiracy is that in making the combo system more standardized, where you're more likely to hit your combo even if you're off axis, there's also a chance it's compensation for the fact that they're making more moves more linear. I don't know if that's too tinfoil, but that's my conspiracy.
That's very tinfoil, but I like it. We need more, conspiracy theories in Tekken.
One can hope, man. With characters like
Yeah.
Brian running around, it's all we can really do. What do you guys, Chip? What do you think of the combo realigning shindig?
Yeah, this is one of those changes I'm still processing a bit because I don't quite know where I sit on it.
Yeah.
As if I want to be selfish, if I'm thinking from like a playing or a competitor standpoint,
Mhm.
I love the change because I don't care about combos. Combos have like never been the Tekken thing for me.
Yeah.
They've always just been a burden to me. Like, oh, now I have to learn the off-axis combo.
Mhm.
So that part of me is saying, well, I love this because I just get to do my staple over and over again. And usually when you've sidestepped to someone's side or to their back, you've usually done something pretty good. You've made a read to get that far, and then you hit the launcher and maybe the combo's suboptimal. However, the other side of me puts my selfishness to the side and understands that Tekken combos will always be a big part of that.
Mhm.
And it's very streamlined, very streamlined. You're losing a lot of that character specialty stuff. A lot of that, are they going to drop it? Are they going to do the right combo? Oh, wow, I can't believe they saved it like that. Stuff like that is gone. So
Mhm.
it's definitely another fence-sitting opinion from me. I'm not passionate either way, but overall, I just don't want to see Tekken get too streamlined, even if it benefits me.
Yeah.
I still think we are really pushing our luck here
Yeah.
by fully rotating a character.
Mhm. Yeah, that makes sense. We've basically just patched Keisuke into grand finals.
Yeah, like you got to really think about those characters who can benefit from high damage combos, right? Hit the electric and they flip.
I think this change. I don't know how. I don't understand the mechanics of the change. How exactly it would change, right? The way people think about this change is that now every time you are slightly off axis and then you do a launch, you're gonna be like on axis, right?
Mm-hmm.
But this is actually quite a linear way of thinking. It might not end up being what you think that it is.
Mm.
Every launcher, even the ones that you can do your normal BNB is, they're not always on axis.
No.
You know, they just allow your BNB to hit.
Mhm.
In fact, some launchers have unique routes that
Yeah.
if you really push your character to it, that you can do only from that launch. It
Mhm.
could be a hotcake, it could be the down 4-2, but you might not be able to do the same combo from a different launcher that looks straight because that launcher puts you slightly off axis, allows you to do other routes, right?
And it can even be the opponent's hurt box dependent as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So this sort of interference, I would hope that it actually does make things. It probably, sorry, it will make a lot more things more standardized.
Mhm.
But I'd be surprised if there's a character or a launcher that doesn't that gets nerfed because of it
Mm.
as well, because of the access correction. I think we are going to see that most
Yeah.
likely.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. Um, yeah, man, they're making some very big changes, which for one I'm excited for. I do like big changes. It can kind of stir the pot a little. But on the topic of big changes, we've got some character specific stuff going on. I'm just gonna hit play on this in the background. This is Azucena you're currently seeing on screen, and Chipzeeh is a known Azucena enjoyer, a known coffee king. Um, what do you think about where Azucena's at right now, I suppose? And
Yeah.
then what do you think about some of the changes that they've showcased in this talk?
Yeah, cool. So if we're looking from a strength perspective in season one, we've seen Azucena go through a lot of changes.
Mm-hmm.
One of them extremely deserved, some maybe not so much. And as a result, she was hit quite hard, and she's definitely on the lower end. I'm not going to say super low because I think she's still a pretty good character, but she's definitely on the lower end, and I think that's a universal opinion.
Mm-hmm.
As for my opinions on how she worked, though, I quite enjoyed how she worked for the most part in season one. I sort of liked that I could still access that poking gameplay. I didn't think she was too overtuned. I didn't think you were constantly in a blender all the time. I think it was a decent mix for what they were trying to achieve.
Mm-hmm.
And overall, it felt relatively tame compared to the rest of the cast. And, my hopes, albeit ambitious, were that maybe characters in general would be brought in line with her rather than her brought in line with the rest of the cast.
Makes sense.
And I think she's a character that has some weaknesses as well. Whereas, we're seeing characters at the top where, this homogenization and stuff like that, that's happening with a lot of these patches. A lot of characters don't feel like they're weak at any one thing anymore, but she definitely at least feels like she does in one or two departments. So going into the season 2 changes, comparatively to some of the stuff we might be talking about later, I think it's relatively tame, but it doesn't. I was still disappointed with some of them, just given my overall ideology of Tekken.
Mm-hmm.
I think the running 3-2 into the stance at +5 is a bit much.
Yeah.
The move was, it was still usable before, but it was used more as a power mid, and then you've got to try and use movement to keep building off running 3-2 in its current state at +2. But +5 into stance is just another one of those canned things we're seeing over and over again. It's way too simple. You just put your opponent in a situation and they have to guess into your stance. We're seeing this on so many characters.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not crazy about that. I'm somewhat excited for this new move that's been shown in Lib a few times. It's sort of like a high crushing looking mid axe kick, like a dance move.
Yeah.
She's like lying down on her back. And I think that one's kind of interesting, giving like a high crush option from Lib. But something like that probably would have been a bit more balanced and fun to play with at a +2 situation, because +2 incentivizes your opponent to maybe jab into you, and maybe then you could use that move to get him, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think the mind game would have made a bit more sense had it stayed +2, but we're going into +5 and it simplifies it a little bit. One thing I was really hoping for, and it still isn't happening, is that when we saw the Azucena trailer, when she was, before the game was even out, The trailer was all about her sort of going into stands, strutting around, dancing, evading things, going under things, dancing around her opponent. And then when she came out, obviously she had the busted running 3-2. And there hasn't been many changes to sort of replicate what we saw in that trailer.
Yeah.
It's not often useful to stay in lib and try and dodge things, because you're playing such a risky mind game where you're not blocking mids, and mids are almost always the launchers and stuff like that. And without heat, her lib high evasion doesn't actually do anything unless they commit to a big string, because then she can get to their back. So Azusen is a character where the opponent's sort of incentivized to jab check lib in the lower minus situations, and it's very hard to enforce that sort of unique play style of strutting around and dancing. I
Yeah.
thought it would be cool if they could actually push that, because that is her personality. That is what they've shown. But lib really just seems like get in at plus and get out with your mix, and that is not what that is not what it originally was shown to be. So I really wish they would lean more into that front, but uh unfortunately it's going more of the direction of just get in and get out, which it is now.
Yeah, well, this is one of the reasons I was also curious about your thoughts on while running 3-2 into lib being +5. Because one thing I do like, this was a change that they made with Steve a little while back, where his Lionheart situations, this is one of his stances, are now optional. And I was very concerned about how that was going to end up panning out, and I've still got some problems with it. But the fact that while running 3-2 into lib is optional, from the footage that they've showcased, um, does that still seem like a reasonably flexible situation for you, I suppose? Because it does mean that you get to you get to take your while running 3-2 +2 and actually make good on non-frame tight options, because your opponent's potentially looking out for like lib 1 or lib 2 or something like that.
Yeah. I think mind games like this are very dependent on block stun
Yeah,
and confirming the animation.
that's
So
true.
if we look at something like Victor's running 2,
Hmm.
I don't think there's much of a mix up between if they're going to go into EI or not, because
Yep.
it's usually quite clear.
Yep.
I haven't done any frame by frame slowdown on Azucena yet, but that will be the first thing to check,
Hmm.
because the strength will be infinitely greater if you cannot tell when she's done that lib transition. Um, Obviously, as well, you said big patch notes coming, so we don't know how the lib moves are going to work as well with the +5. But if they don't change, currently the way it works now is that lib 2, which is a 14 frame mid safe heat engager, also essentially fully tracks both directions
Yes.
at +4. It does that at +4 right now. So
Yeah.
when I'm playing Azucena, I hit the back turn hatcher kick, I hit while standing 3, I hit heat, I block heat smash, all of that. All I have to do is throw my 2, and you sort of have to power crush, retaliate it, or parry it,
Hmm.
and that's all you can do. And even I'm a safe player, so I'll take any out to play super safe. But at the same time, it's not particularly entertaining, is it? Just me fishing for that move over and over again to condition somebody. So
Yeah.
if that doesn't change, running 3-2 is yet another move that I'm just going to be doing that to people, and I'm just going to be doing running 3-2, and I'm going to keep checking you with 2 over and over and over again, because it's so little risk, such high payout. So I'm hoping, I just want creative mind games that doesn't feel like I have to just pick the easy option.
Yeah.
I want there to be, I just want Tekken to be a communication between two players that can interact with each other almost all of the time.
Mm.
And just a lot of these canned 50-50s just don't feel like that.
Well, currently showing on the screen is also her new full crouch low. I'm curious on your thoughts on this, because she's
Well,
got a
it
17 frame sweep that's +5 into lib.
well, it's just the same mind game again. It's
Yep.
+5.
Yeah.
Like, it's just 4 moves have the same mind game on them.
Yep.
So what's the point? Like, I would love to, she has a few transitions that are like mental frames, like down 4, and then she does a mid cancel, and then she goes into lib in their face.
Hmm.
Stuff like that at its current use is just so useless. Like, the risk reward is so bad. It looks awesome, cool animation, really fun, but why on earth am I going to make use of that and try and mental frame overload you like Lei Wulong, for example,
Yeah.
when I could just lock you down into +5 with my running mid or my full crouch low, or my, I've literally got 4 or 5 moves that achieve this. So
Hmm.
the sweep's overkill. She's already got a full crouch sweep that has actually its own sort of, at least it's a different mind game. It
Hmm.
forces crouch on them at a certain situation, but that's gone. Another change, the down one. This is another
Yep.
massive change. It was
Yep.
a big counter hit launching mid that went into -2, and that in itself was so strong because she has a 13 frame safe while standing high crushing counter hit launcher.
Yep.
So if your opponent tries to jab check your -2, which they usually will to beat a while standing 4, you're gonna counter hit launch them.
Mhm.
+4 does not need to be there. It's such a simplification of the mind game. It's now just it's a frame trap as opposed to a very cheap read on a jab string.
Then this
Um,
is one of the other funny things as well, because I find when you give a character enough plus frame situations, your opponent's just naturally not gonna contest in a lot of spots. And if they're not contesting, your damage potential actually goes down.
Yeah.
It's a risky way to play, but I think it's if you take a look at Steve, for example, historically his down forward 2 used to be a homing move in earlier seasons of Tekken 7. And his while standing 11 frame punish while standing 1-2 is +3 force crouch. This is a frame interval where your opponent still has access to movement. The problem was his down forward 2 was a homing 16 frame mid counter hit launcher, and it was completely
Yeah.
safe on block. And so the situation felt very binary. It was like either you're going to stay ducking or try and sidestep back one, or you're going to try and interrupt down forward 2, or you're just going to block both. It felt very like
Yeah.
restricting. And they ended up making his down forward 2 linear. And now the situation, even though it's plus for Steve, doesn't necessarily feel like a it's not that it's not a winning situation. It is by all mathematical metrics a positive situation for Steve, but any button that Steve presses on an immediate timing is going to lose to the opponent doing a sidestep into a launcher.
Yeah.
Now that requires some skill and awareness on the opponent's part, and then this all feeds into this nice synergy of, oh shit, got this fast situation that happens, Steve's at advantage, but both players can interact and kill each other.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
really
I think
cool.
yeah, I love that, and I'm just scared of how frequently we're moving away from it. I think binary is the best word. I really love these multifaceted mind games where
Mm.
the existence of movement brings in timing mind games as well. I
Mm-hmm.
think, when you've got more freedom, it becomes less about mid, low, and maybe like a counter hit. Whereas like, oh, I think this guy's gonna step, so I'm gonna realign and change my timing to track him. But then he could counter hit me, so maybe I'm gonna like it gets a lot more. I really prefer that stuff rather than just force some plus frames on somebody and I'm either gonna mix you or I'm gonna frame check you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's real. That's real. And we've got Deviljin on the screen right now doing tons of knockdowns and plus frames. But before we get into that, if we do, I actually want to quickly move over to the co-host's character of choice, Mr. Kingu. Hangman,
Oh boy.
what do you think
Oh
about where
boy.
King currently is at in Tekken 8?
Oh man. He's F tier, eh? He's not
He's
good.
bin tier, trash.
He's bin tier.
Shit,
Absolute trash.
he's only got one move. He's so shit.
Yeah, did you know that Kings have a really low win rate at God of Destruction? Do
That's
you
true.
also know that King is the most played character in Japan, but yet we do not have like that many top Japanese King players out there?
Did
You
you
know,
know that
I
the
think this
John has to consult with his phone to win his matches?
exactly, and the John is like I don't know, he's just lucky, man.
Yes.
So King really needs it. You know what I mean? King just really needs it.
No, what do you honest thoughts? Honest thoughts. What do you think about King in this game right now?
Oh, dude, he's
I'll-
fucked, right? He's so fucked. What the hell? I've said a lot of the things that he still has from vanilla Tekken muscle armor, 4-4 Newton 2. I mean, 4-4 Newton 2, everyone knows it's good for obvious reasons. Back one sort of confirm muscle armor. These are the moves that I said um, in vanilla when the game came out that it was going to be good. Actually, I had a lot of people discussing about muscle armor in the King Discord when it came out because it's a very unique move, right? And actually, a lot of people thought this move was just okay, but time kind of showed that this move is absolutely incredible, right? King is not a character with an electric. I
Mhm.
mean, most characters don't have electrics. King also does not have a demon paw.
Mhm.
So this and a lot of characters have these really dumb neutral moves, right?
Yep.
This is King's answer to those moves, which is instead of being able to do stuff like that to you, he can ignore stuff like that.
Yeah.
right? But it's very cooked right now in season 1. And when I saw the nerf version in season 2, which is I think they alluded that the recovery of the move is reduced. I need to see what that actually means in the game. And the other one is that King now takes the full damage of the blows that he's taking, that he's armoring through while he's in muscle armor.
Yep.
These are not big nerfs, I think. The recovery, I will have to see what happens with it. And also another important question is muscle armor 2 the follow-up? Is that move still a heat engager?
Yeah.
Right?
True.
Because if you absorb a full damage of a move and then you hit the heat engager, you gain everything back. It's like we're back to square one, right? So muscle armor is clearly a really broken move, and I will maybe not. Sorry, I'll reserve the word broken. It's a really, really, really strong move, right?
Yeah.
In my opinion, King is a very, very shallow character at top level, and he's always been a very shallow character even in Tekken 7. Predominantly because he doesn't have interesting lows.
Yep.
He's just and doesn't have interesting stances. He just gets plus frames and then he does his throws, and even though he has like 20 billion throws, all throws practically function the same way, right?
Yep.
So it doesn't really you use Giant Swing, you use Shining Wizard, throws are throws, right? It's not really unique. The properties are the same. So because of the existence of down forward 2 and the mids that he has, this character is quite shallow. It's very easy to pilot to play King at top level, in my opinion. Other top players might find the chain throws or the throw inputs or not being able to crush on a really strong standing low to be a problem when playing King. But this guy is quite easy to play. The mind games are all very easy. You literally just hit a poke and then the other guy guess. That's literally it, right? I thought coming into season 2, muscle armor was going to be nerfed, which it is. I didn't think it was going to be nerfed in this way. And I thought the penalty would be bigger for muscle armor. And I was expecting, and I'm still expecting, a nerf to both down forward 2 counter hit launcher and forward neuter 2. I don't know if they will get nerfed, but in my gut, I'm still feeling like they're going to nerf it. What I didn't expect are the other things that they're showing on stream, right?
Yep.
While sending 2-2 into running Jaguar Sprint actually is not super surprising.
It makes sense for the game.
It makes sense for the direction of the game and what other characters already have. So I'm not very surprised there. It's not me saying I like it or I think it's fair or this and that. It's just I'm not surprised when I saw it. It makes sense for what they do, right? What I'm surprised of is that they're bringing back homing Giant Swing and Shining Wizard, I believe, at least minimum, right?
Yep.
This was actually, before this, like all throws are homing. And I know a lot of King players struggle with tracking opponents. That's why Kings rely on down forward 2. Not just because down forward 2 is a completely gangbuster super move, but because outside of that move, this guy has a bit of trouble tracking opponents in a rewarding way. So it doubles up. He needs to track, and he needs to interrupt you, and it's also super damage, right? That's why Kings rely on down forward 2, because it's a strong move, but also because the character needs it to crouch on it. And that's why it's kind of shallow, this character. But now they're giving homing throws, which I don't understand why he's getting them.
Well,
I really don't understand.
Do you want to put on the tinfoil hat? Do you suspect that the homing throws are potentially there to
down forward 2 nerfs? Maybe.
Yeah, like down forward 1, down forward 2. Maybe some of the moves that have a bit more, because they.
Yeah, but you're a smart person, Ramon.
No. But the reason I say it, it's not even just for competitive. I don't know if you would have, like, if you've had a Tekken 7 account reset, or you're just trying to get to max rank on Tekken 8 so you can get the fucking end of season sticker or whatever. Do you think, I have a feeling that Tekken devs do some degree of R&D with casual players. It informs a bunch 100%. Of their decisions. I think down forward 2-1 and down forward 1-2 spin cycle is one of the most effective low brain energy cost ways to rinse your way through the early to intermediate ranks. If you were to just look at any characters that exist in the game, in terms of like the amount of effort that needs to be put in to the amount of reward you can get out if you're just good at cycling your mind games and stuff like that. When I've played King, even back in T7, I've had people completely stun locked because they couldn't deal with down forward 1-2. Not even down forward 2-1, just down forward 1-2, which is a low reward option, right? I have a feeling, maybe, that the homing throws are being implemented because they want to try and reduce a bit of the tracking on moves like down forward 2 and down forward 1, irrespective of whether or not that's warranted, and especially if you're like a competitive player, right?
Yeah, my time in the sun is over. It seems like.
Oh, dude, you're gonna be
Yeah,
using Jag
we'll see what
Sprint
happens.
24/7.
Yeah.
What do you think of this
Yeah.
extended Jaguar?
Look, this is essentially a slide.
Yeah,
That's essentially a slide.
yeah.
When you block this move, King is on the floor, and you can't low parry this move. They gave King a slide. That's what it is. That's crazy. I don't know what's going on here, man.
It is wild. It is wild.
Yeah. And he's armored when he's in heat, right? And
Mhm.
and this whole charge Jaguar sprint thing.
Mhm.
It's very hard to process all these changes without seeing all the other changes that will happen to King, but also to the rest of the cast.
Mhm.
It is a lot more 50-50 power again, right? Like the gas tank on 50-50 for King has increased dramatically because that low is really, really strong. That low is not reactable, the drop kick. You can twitch react to it at best. And if you twitch react to it, you're going to get hit by other moves, right?
Mhm.
So that low drop kick is going to be a staple now for me because a couple of people have been able to sort of react to the RKO sometimes.
Yep.
So sometimes it is hard to mix them with it. But now they've given me this knockdown low. Yeah, and I guess on that note as well, there's changes to the throw break mechanic, right? Now, not just King, every throw that's broken will inflict throw break damage to
The person who
chip
broke
damage,
it.
rather, white health damage to the person that broke it. The amount that's shown in the trailer, I think, would be irrelevant most of the time for any character. It's 5 damage,
Yeah.
5 chip damage.
Yeah.
Right? I think it's more worthwhile to think about why they're doing this in the first place.
Mhm.
The amount of chip that it does is not really significant, I think. I'm more curious to understand why they're doing it.
Yep.
But I actually have a guess. You know, this rhetoric that people say, oh, when I break a throw, when I break the throw, the other person should take chip damage.
Yeah.
Have you heard about this sort of like argument before?
Yeah, I've heard it.
Yeah, right. I actually think that's please ignore that I play the throw character for a second. I think that's actually incorrect to look at it like that because doing the throw itself is already a lot of risk.
Yeah, it's a
Right.
King's version of a low, right?
Forget King, any
Yep.
character.
Yeah, any character.
It's already a lot of risk because throws have the good thing about throws is that it's fast.
Mhm.
Throws are steppable, they're duckable, and they're not even guaranteed.
Mhm.
The one thing about Tekken is opportunity cost. If
Yep.
you might have a lot of amazing moves, but why do your third best amazing move when you can do your number one best move all the time, right?
Mm.
The opportunity cost for doing a throw could be doing a faster attack like a jab or a magic four that will interrupt and get guaranteed damage if you're using the throw in that way.
Mhm.
Or you could do a homing move that will get block or get damage in a guaranteed way.
Mhm.
Or if it's a mix-up tool, you can do a low.
Yeah.
Right? To get guaranteed damage. So doing throws already have inherently a lot of weaknesses. So in that sense, it makes sense that if you are able to land the throw on the opponent, that you get a bit of something out of it as well. So
And
the chip
what's
damage,
funny, you're too good at explaining this because I'm coming around to it now, which is frustrating. The damage you get isn't guaranteed either in this case because it's chip.
it's chip damage, and but the amount of chip damage that it does is almost irrelevant. That it's confusing to me why they added it in the first place. Right?
So this was the argument I was using against it, which was there are going to be instances where it's a super scary tournament point match, not even tournament point, rank point match. You're just about to get your PNG or just about to lose your new PNG, and down to the wire, and your opponent's playing King, and you are 2 pokes away from death. So there's a little bit of leverage there, so long as you can keep your movement tight and not eat like a forward 1 or a forward neutral 2 or something. The king player is gonna have to jab you twice. He runs up to you and he does a 2 throw, and he hasn't done a 2 throw the entire set, and you're barely ready for it, and you break it, but now you're down to final mix. This is a niche. This is
That will happen.
But
That will
it's
happen.
gonna
That will
happen.
happen.
It's gonna
It will
happen.
happen. It will happen. And you know what else will happen? Me trying to use throws to kill a person out of rage,
Yep.
and then they break the throw and now they're in rage, and I'm fucked.
That's also you're too good. You're too good. You're, you're actually too good.
Dude.
See, third saying Poultry has a point, but listen to that fucking rebuttal, dude. Hangman is ready. He came prepared. Yeah, in the grand scheme, it's quite inconsequential. There's going to be those funny moments, but
Yeah,
you
I
actually make a really good argument.
there. Yeah, I just don't understand why it's there in this way.
Mhm.
I need to know more. It would make more sense if they make throws less negative, maybe. You know, but that might be a bit too much changes.
Potentially. But then it's also a case by case basis as well, right? Like how breaks work. Like
exactly.
for instance, and also who's a bigger beneficiary in terms of neutral. So this is one cool thing about playing Steve. If I do a 1+2 throw and it's broken, you're staring down the barrel potentially of a heat charged Sonic Fang, and I am going to beat 90% of your options, no matter what character you're playing. I don't know how many people in the chat have had this happen to you, where you break a throw from Steve and then he does Sonic Fang and he hits you. I think this is universal. I see Koreans get hit by this. I see Pakistani players get hit by this because it's good. It's just a genuinely good option. Steve is privileged to have that in that situation. A tracking borderline full screen mid that's I-14 and heat engages or can be spent to be plus. I feel, given the fact that they're making the change to combos universally, key charge universally, in the past, wall tech universally, that's very unlikely because all the throws work differently, right?
I mean, let me think about it like this, right? So 180 is the amount of health that you have right now, right? Chip damage from breaking throws is 5 damage. So 180 divided by 5 is 36. I have to throw you 36 times to kill you? Come on, it's not relevant, guys. Just let it pass. Just let it pass. 36 times.
36 times.
Just let it. Who cares? Just.
You need to make that a challenge. You need to be the first King player to win a round with nothing but chip damage from throws.
36 times. Just let me have my chip damage, man. Leave me alone.
That's fucking funny, dude. I wonder if the chip would kill. Because it's just pure chip damage. I'm guessing
no chip damage ever kills. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Chip, what do you think about the throw change?
Yeah, look, I think I agree on the point that it's pretty inconsequential, like how small it is. I just don't think it needs to be there, especially because of that small damage thing. Like, I don't know, these throws, they have just such high payoff. Like, it just doesn't need to be there. Like, I definitely get the point that if a low would hit, then you get a bit, but it just doesn't need to be there. I just think it's unnecessary. It's almost like a joke. It's almost like a joke. It just goes against the defensive penalty thing again. Because throw breaking is a skill in its own, or even though you can duck them, but just seeing you get that little bit of chip when you guessed right on the 2 moves that look like a 1+2 throw that can net 40 to 60 damage, is insulting.
That's fair. Well, I did want to use this as a segue into something else. For those of you who are watching right now, we've got Jin set to break throws, and the developers are just doing some throws and having them broken. They've added this new little thing that pops up. I don't know if you can see that. For those of you who are watching, it says counter on the screen because he's got counter hit still enabled. They're now putting text on the screen to tell you if certain game states have happened. If you launch someone, it'll tell you how many combo hits you've done. If you get a counter hit, it'll tell you if you got a counter. And before we go into the counters specifically, because that's an important one, one issue that I've found with Tekken historically, it's not really an issue. It's a matter of how you look at it. There's not a lot of like intrinsic motivation in Tekken from both a systems level or a gameplay level. And what I mean by intrinsic motivation is things happening in the game to tell you that you did the right thing. because it's always been a fairly minimal fighting game. If you want the complete extreme end example, take a look at Guilty Gear Strive. The amount of memes that have come out of what happens when you get a counter hit in that game, and you get this massive fucking counter show up on the screen, and the announcer announces it, and your opponent's crying, and they're shitting and they're farting. In this game, in Tekken, historically, we haven't had any of that. We've had the flash on certain moves. If your move does above a certain threshold of damage, you'll get like a spark that'll show up on screen. Maybe the camera will zoom in for a bit. They've gotten more and more elaborate and explosive with it over time, but you haven't got any other visual elements, typically, to showcase this stuff. And one area that I wish they did have it, if any, like say you had a version of Tekken that's completely stripped down, if I could have one version that I wouldn't mind seeing, it would be a flash that shows on screen somewhere that says like correct throw break or something like that. Or some kind of flash of sparks, even. It doesn't even have to be text. Because throw breaks happen quite quickly, and then the following situation can occur quite quickly, right? The amount of times you've broken a throw successfully and King tosses out back one, you get counter hit launched, it's like, ugh. And this is not to say I want them to put it in the game or put more shit in the game, but if they're making this move where they're gonna have counter on the screen, they're gonna have combo on the screen, and the point is more visual clarity for newer players, more visual clarity for spectators, I think having a little green throw break show up probably wouldn't hurt and might act as an intrinsic motivator for newer players to go, holy shit, I actually did break a few throws that game. I remember it. I remember seeing like a couple of instances where I broke a throw. Maybe I didn't deserve it. Maybe I was just mashing the 2 button. But small things like that, if that's already the direction they're going in, I think that to me feels more valuable than having counter show up on the screen or like the amount of damage your combo does. Yeah. Well, what do you guys think about them adding shit to the display, I suppose? The counter one has been quite controversial. I'm curious to know what you guys think.
Yeah. Understandable, right? Counter is the one that could change the game. Maybe it's going to be hard to even like confirm King down 4-2-1. That's
Yeah.
like what people talks about, right? It depends on how quickly that counter shows up.
Yeah, well, so here's what
but,
people have
yeah.
mentioned, because they've said that apparently it doesn't come up like immediately. And
Yeah.
so the concern is more for moves like G clefs or strings.
Yeah. Law back 2-1, those sort of things, right?
Yeah.
Or back 1, I don't know. But the 3-hit counter hits, I think would be a lot easier. I feel like that's going to be enough time to pass. So I am quite concerned for this counter one, just to see what would happen. Look, I get it. I get you want to give like the audience more information. I don't know though, like showing damage values and these sort of things. Does this help? Does this make the audience more excited to watch the match? I don't know. Maybe they have data on this.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure. You know what I mean? Or maybe they could just go overboard. Just show the inputs as well.
Yeah.
to see if they're actually breaking the throws or not.
Yeah.
Like that, he didn't break the throw. He didn't even try.
He didn't even try.
He didn't even try. Just put it in there. In fact, if it's up to me, if you did a combo or you did like a punish that if there was an optimal combo or punish that can kill, the system should tell you right after, like, oh, you could have killed there. You know what I mean?
That's crazy.
That's
bro,
funny.
You did your combo. You're like, oh, you did your BNB. It didn't kill. He has to guess one last time. The game tells you, oh, you could have killed there, bro.
That would be funny. I do think it would be cool if they had like post-match stats. It was just like, oh, you successfully broke 12% of throws.
Kind of cool.
Average combo damage 50.
I would be so depressed.
You know how the game's got like your compiled statistics for like your defense and attack and stuff. It just generates you a report of those based on the one match you just played where you got absolutely ass blasted by an Ana. And you didn't even get a chance to press. It's like defense 14. Yeah.
Most used moves, it would be like down 4-1, down 4-2.
Down 4-2. Remains to be seen whether or not this is going to have a substantial impact or not. I think the fact that it's kind of off to the side is good, for one. But yeah, I wanted to quickly jump on to Jin, and I do understand that we've gone past our allotted time, but if you guys are down to keep kind of blabbing
Yeah.
for a bit, Jin. So, Jin's been a bit of a conundrum over the course of Tekken 8. Very strong character, doesn't seem to have any real weaknesses. It's just a whole lot of strength and a whole lot of averages. They're making some changes. So we can see on screen right now his up forward 2. This was an absolute noob stomper move. No longer safe. It's very evasive, sidestepping mid. It's now -10. His down 2, one of the most statted out lows, even if it's one of those borderline reactable lows, in terms of the amount of good stats it has on top of that. No longer a counter hit launcher. 214, one of the best strings in the game, no longer safe. We'll start with you, Chip. Like, what do you think about, I guess, where Jin's been and then where he's going?
Yeah, I think Jin's definitely, I think it's a no-brainer. He's one of the strongest characters in the game, and everyone complains about him on the regular. These 214 and the up 4-2 changes, I didn't even need to see them in the presentation, to be honest. I knew they were there 3
Yep.
months ago.
Yep.
Like they tested it on Fang with his evasive punch,
Yep.
and you can't let him not have it and Jin have it. So I
Oscar
think
too
we
as well.
just knew these. Yeah, I think we knew these changes were coming
Mhm.
for those first ones. We knew a down to nerf was coming. We didn't know the nature. Like they could have gone a launch punishable route, or in this case, the removing the counter hit like they did. But I think all of the Jin nerfs that we're seeing are unexpected.
Mhm.
Are expected. What's unexpected is the buffs they shown after.
Yeah.
Like when I was watching the presentation, it was very deliberately laid out. The characters that they started showing were the ones that everyone, puts in bottom 5 in their Twitter tier list. So
Mhm.
John, Azucena, who else did they show? Like even like underplayed characters like Lydia and stuff. It was very clear that they wanted to say, here's the characters that you've been saying a week. Here are the buffs.
Yep.
So then when King came out and when Jin came out, I thought the segment was going to be, here's the characters you guys have been complaining about, and here are their nerfs.
Yeah.
And it kind of was that, except it wasn't, because we also saw a lot of big buffs for both of them.
Oh.
And the Jin ones, it's just more. I, I, when I was thinking about answering this question, I just realized that I'm just saying the same thing that I've already said a few times on this podcast, that they're doing the same thing as everybody else.
Yeah.
Jin's got mega plus frames into stance. He jumps across the screen and puts you mega minus into stance. Like every character really just is becoming the same. I don't know why Jin even needed this to begin with.
Yep.
I really am just. I'm at a loss for words. To play devil's advocate, I understand why maybe they increase the speed on the stance, like the down 1+2 looking punch. Like that thing was like completely useless.
Mhm.
You could react to it most of the time. So I get that they're trying to give that utility, but then we're giving him Yoshi's full crouch sweep.
Yep.
Like that, just it didn't need to be a thing.
Yeah.
You did not need to speed it up. You did not need to make it a launcher. It's just too much. Like and what other changes are under the hood that they're not showing? Like they don't have time to show everything. So
Yeah.
I don't know why the top tiers are getting some major buffs that just force more 50-50 with the same stuff, honestly.
Because it kind of looks like they've given him Devil Jin's Heat Smash just as a neutral button. It's obviously
Yeah.
not going to have the same reward on hit, but just this full screen, advancing, flying, safe, plus on block mid that leads into a probably much more ambiguous mix-up situation because Devil Jin's forced into Morning Crow. Jin is going into Crouch Dash at +5.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's going to be more incentive for the opponent to want to press into that. And they're staring down the barrel on electric. It's
Yeah.
wild.
It's really wild. And look, although I know it's totally fine here, I've been avoiding swearing as opposed to my own stream where it's every second word, but it's coming out for what the fuck like were they thinking with this hell sweep change where it like with the heat or something it doesn't stagger and then they have to stand block the second mid and
Yep.
it's minus 14. Like that makes the way the down two is right now look like nothing.
Yeah.
Like what are we doing at that point? Like that 50-50 is so big and you have to risk your life massively and you just get nothing. Like for me, like it's I've always said it, but in Tekken 8 it's just so much more applicable that if it's not launch punishable, to me it's not unsafe. Like yeah, you take a bit of damage, but like I don't really care if you're going to punish me unless it's a combo or something massive. So this minus 14 unless you're playing against Brian, it's just the difference between 14 and 15 in this game,
It's
just
huge.
it's absolutely massive. It is just such a ludicrous change. I don't understand what motivated it.
And
Period.
furthermore, like they're talking about because this has been kind of the through line, I suppose, with this whole pod episode, is the kind of hot and cold shindig going on. Yep, we're buffing defensive options. Yep, we're buffing aggressive options. Yep, we're trying to make the game more accessible to newer players. Yep, we're also making Jin's Hell Sweep, for some incredulous reason, way more harder to defend against.
Yeah.
It's I don't feel like you can have your cake and eat it. I think this is probably the main sticking point for a lot of people as to why they've got negative thoughts about this, because everybody's been super positive about um, the words that have been spoken about buffing defensive play, giving you more options. Your ability to move is now expanded because you can step into the foreground from crouch, yada yada yada. And I feel like a lot of players are still sticking out hope, given that there's 1,500 lines of patches coming. But when some of the changes do look like these Jin changes, where it's like we're making a Hell Sweep harder to defend against, seemingly specifically for newer players, because stronger players are going to learn to react to this. They're going to learn how to deal with it. Block the low, stand block the mid, continue. There are going to be players who reach all the way up to the high intermediate ranks who struggle to do this. I'll struggle to do it under pressure. And it's the kind of thing, it's the kind of quirk, the kind of like canned defensive situation where it is explicitly rewarding someone who's playing against the character enough to know to do that. Like this is a hiatus kind of situation move, right? Like
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
if you're not someone who's quite dedicated to the game and has pretty well trained defense, something like a Hell Sweep where you have to block the first hit, then stand guard the second hit in order to get a 14 frame punish, when other similar looking Hell Sweeps like Kazuya's still give you a launch if you block the mid, it's needlessly complex. I don't see the reason behind it. I'm curious to know if you've got any thoughts on it, Hangman, because it's kind of weird.
I'm not sure. We're going quite a few places there. Can you succinct your question? Sorry.
Yeah, well, it feels like to me the through line issue with these changes, aside from the fact that they said one thing and they're doing the complete opposite thing, seemingly with this video.
Oh yeah.
It's that it's not. It doesn't seem consistent what their philosophy is, at least in terms of what they're saying. So you've got, for instance, Jin
Yeah.
with his new Hell Sweep, where you have to block the low and then block the mid in order to punish it, and they're trying to make the game more accessible. They're saying they're nerfing characters, they're buffing characters. I don't know. Like, what do you? It's not really a good question, but
I definitely feel the community is getting that mixed messaging
mixed up.
signal. Yeah, for sure. And that's for sure definitely a marketing problem on their end because it's such a common sentiment. If I watch the Harada bars and really what they're saying, even in that defense video, I'm not very surprised.
Yeah.
But that's because I hear them talk about this balance stuff a lot, which is I already know that Harada once said in the Harada bars that making the game totally fair and balanced is boring, in his opinion, right? And players also don't like that. And I've also heard him say many times, he cares a lot about the sentiment of new players being frustrated and not being able to win against veteran players.
Yeah.
i.e., new players get absolutely curb stomp the hell out of them, right?
Mhm.
Now, I don't know if that means that Harada wants like a jabroni, like I don't know, some random king player in OCE to beat like a Korean that shows up to like his major or something.
Mhm.
I don't know if that's like the sort of like level that he's looking for, or if he means that instead of getting 0 out of 20 games, or maybe the newbie can win 3 games out of 20. You know, um, I don't exactly understand what he means, but this whole um, the list of changes that we're having is not a surprise to me, and I don't even feel the mixed messaging component that other people do,
Yeah.
because uh, to me this is very clear. This has been the whole direction the whole time, coming from Tekken 7.
Mhm.
Of course, like that video kind of gave you a little bit of hope and gave me a little bit of like hoping that there's some other mechanics. But once the actual thing came out, when it was shown, and we still don't know the full thing after all, I'm not really surprised. This has been the whole game plan the whole time.
Yeah. Yeah, that's perfectly fair. Oh, this was the plan all along. Well, I do want to
Yeah.
ask if you guys had any other characters.
Remember, they made homing hell sweep and took it away,
Yep.
so they could not change Heihachi's homing hell sweep back, and also still get away with the electric recovery buff.
They're
Remember
conniving,
that.
man. They're
Remember
conniving.
that. All of you remember that. I
Leroy,
never forget.
was it Leroy or Fakumram who got released with patch notes already existing? I think it was Leroy, right? Probably all the DLC characters from that point on.
I will never forget.
Never.
Well, I do want to ask if there are any characters in particular you guys wanted to go over, because they did go over a few. We had Jun, Lydia, Devil Jin, Zafina, Yoshi. Those were the ones that we didn't touch on up until this point.
I'm personally, I guess we're already going a little bit over time, 2 hours in.
Mhm.
But personally speaking, coming into season 2, I was looking at some of the characters that I want to secondary in season 2.
Yep.
And 3 characters that I really wanted to give a try, depending on how the patches goes, are Zafina,
Mhm.
Jun,
Mhm.
and Lily.
Ooh. Okay.
Jun looks like she's a little bit different to most of the other casts here. I don't quite understand what those counter means. It goes up till 100 light bulbs or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So really interested to see what she does
Mhm.
when the full thing comes out. She had a lot more changes as well, already shown on the Tekken Talk. And I don't know, June right now might be the one leading
Mhm.
for me for that secondary spot.
Yeah.
But we'll wait for the full patch notes. But Zafina as well, man. Oh man, that is the perfect tournament character right now.
God damn, dude. That character's crazy. That character is crazy.
Oh, I say Yagami. Thank you so much for that. Yeah, that's for the clarification.
Oh,
Yeah,
what
but
did Yagami hit you with? When it reaches 100 stocks, she gets stronger laser attacks. Oh, I see. Interesting.
yeah.
And then
So that and yeah, go.
well, is she raising the stocks through
The
the
light
light
attacks.
moves, the light attacks?
Yeah,
I
pretty
see.
much. Yeah.
Okay.
So I don't know if it will matter, these stocks thing. I don't know if you'll ever get 100 in a real game, things like that.
Mhm.
But the base character itself is already strong in 7. A bit.
Yeah.
Sorry, in 7. In season 1, a
Mhm.
bit underappreciated. Quite excited to see, but like there's so many characters that we haven't seen. We don't know any of these changes that could happen. Who's gonna rise up the rank? Who's gonna drop? Shaheen is also like another one.
Big
Shaheen
question
is
mark.
the fundamentals player's choice of top character in
Yep.
season 1.
Yep.
But yeah, so we'll see what happens. Chip, any characters you're interested in?
Look, all I'm saying is that there's just some crazy stuff. I
Real,
really
man.
don't. I don't need to say too much else. That like, it's just I'm just repeating myself again. Like, there's something. It's plus frame into a stance. These guys. This is stance and 8. Like when I
Yep.
saw I saw Yoshi do something that gives him some plus frames in Flea. Like, that. Like, do we really need to be like forcing Flea that hard? Like, is that like the flavor of the month? Like, like the Flea stance is sort of that like sort of gimmicky, funny, I want to jump around and pogo stance type thing. Do we like really need another setup for that? I thought that could like be like the creative stance. Like, oh, I'm gonna go into it like just in neutral and try and do something crazy to set it up, but. No, we're just that's forced as well. We've got another morning crow set up for Devil Jin
Yep.
to hit you with something, and he's flying at you at plus frames.
No
Like
unblockable.
it really is. Yeah, it just in terms of all the buffs, like it's just very cut and dry for me. It's just so clear the direction of that. I see some mentions of the nerfs, and Yoshi, he got a flash recovery nerf, which I think was very important, and I'm glad. But I
Mm-hmm.
just want to see how big that nerf is. But look, at the end of the day, you've still got the really fast. Like, look at this! Like, I just saw it on the screen, like the
Yep.
2-hit into the flea. Like, you've
What's
got to be
going
kidding!
on,
Like,
dude?
it's just so much like that Anna thing they showed. Like, I'm just not a fan of just everyone's becoming the same. I don't like that.
Yeah.
And like that's basically all I have to say. And not only is it the same, it's not even a nice same. It's just put you in a guessing situation and cop it for
Mm-hmm.
low risk. It's just not what I'm looking for right now.
Yeah, that's
But
fair.
hey, that's them's the breaks. There's all different audiences, so yeah.
Nah, perfectly fair. I think that's a good point to close out on. Hangman, was there anything else you wanted to touch on from this talk specifically?
Yeah, actually,
Mm-hmm.
I don't mind about the characters being the same thing personally. Never really had that issue even in 7. I think the nature of the Tekken 7 system and the up close combat style of it and how it operates based on rules of frames, so which move comes out faster, and having more frames means you can oppress more, will mean that the game will end up being like this, more homogenized.
Mm-hmm.
The way around it is to, I guess, make more neutral interaction more interesting, because as soon as like a contact hits, one opponent has a contact with the other player, and you have a set of mind games you can play and the other person can play. Given the way Tekken is, it's gonna be the same mind game and options
Yeah.
most of the time anyway. Maybe they can change it around. Oh, you can't block in this stance, or this stance has a throw, or this stance has like this move that's a bit special, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's probably the extent to how special it can be, unless of course you want to go absolutely bananas with it, right? Which is like projectiles and
Yeah.
crazy neutral moves like electrics,
A rocket launcher.
or rocket launcher to your feet, right? Yeah, this real, this real. No. What you're saying
Yeah.
is very valid.
Yeah.
Without introducing moves like that, it will fall into this sort of repetitive pattern of mechanics.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
I'm,
Same.
I'm fine with that. That part is not a concern for me. Most characters are still unique enough in the tools that they have for me, personally.
Well, I
Like the Zafina, yeah, like Zafina's backdash or this and that.
I
So for
do
me,
wonder
this
if
is
that's going to be a I guess a marketing point for the devs after a little while, because we've gotten Heihachi with Warrior Instinct, Eddie with
yeah.
Mandinga
That's what they're trying
Stacks,
to do,
Clive,
which is
but then
interesting.
uh
Yeah.
is that going to make a character that plays just box standard minimal stance? FDX was talking about this. He put out a question on Twitter where he basically said, who do I play if I want a character that's got minimal reliance on stance or installs? And the only character that seems to tick most of the boxes was Kazuya. And Kazuya's heat is one of the more fully fleshed out heat states, to the point that it feels like an install, right? More so than just your standard character gets a plus frames mid or a heat smash. He's got like new animations, he's got new lasers, he's got setups and stuff. So even when you're taking the most stripped back character in the game as of right now, there's still a lot going on. And I remember having this chat with you ages ago, Hangman, about how this game feels quite overwhelming, at least for me, and I think you were of the same thought, trying to learn a new character, because you're not just learning the new character, you're learning how they work in Heat, and then you're learning how their install works or their weird, goofy mechanic. And it feels like a whole lot more to learn, even if Heat only adds like 5 or 6 extra moves to a move list that has 100. Those 5 or 6 are very important. And in that move list of 100, you're probably only using like 20 to begin with, right? So I'm curious to know if this is going to be some kind of future marketing strategy for them, where they're going to be like, yeah, releasing
Maybe. Well,
the cleanest,
I've
honestest
seen.
character.
You know what I've sometimes see this past week.
Yeah.
Within the same tweet, someone complains about every character being the same, but they also complain about this bullshit individual mechanic that they're
Yep.
adding to a character. You
Yep.
can't have both.
You can't have both.
Or rather, you can't argue both at the same time.
And yet it feels like you can with this game. That's what's crazy. I feel gaslit.
That's very funny, right? It's very funny, right? We're complaining about individual changes making the game go crazy, but also everyone's becoming the same.
I don't know how they do it,
Listen to yourself, X or Twitter or whatever you're calling yourself.
Oh man, it's crazy. It's crazy. Well, I mean, is that a good spot to wrap up? I think that's pretty good. I think
I'm good.
we're leaving on a very anxious, uncertain note. But
yeah, next week we'll have a amazing episode again. I'm sure
it's gonna be.
I will
beautiful.
be reading every single line as I always do before I even touch the game. I will be testing and I will be reading every single line before I play a real one-game match in Tekken. I can't wait.
It's gonna be fun, at least for a little while. I'm super excited. I hope those of you in the chat are excited. Chip, thank you so much for joining us today.
No worries, dude. Thanks for having me.
Who invited you to come here anyway?
That's a good
man.
question. That's a good question. He just rocks up. He just rocks up. He's just that cool. No, thank you so much for joining us. It was a blast having you on. I'm super excited to see what you cook up with season 2 Azucena, assuming that she's got some interesting shit going on.
Yep.
And yeah, for all of you who are out in the chat, do remember TWT signups for dojos. If you're a tournament organizer, if you want to get involved in the scene, they're starting April 15th. April 1st, and I believe March 31st for people in the wrong time zones. It's going to be the release date for season 2. It's going to be fantastic. Please, if you've got any questions, if you've got anything that you want us to explore, don't be afraid to hit us up on Twitter. We've got our Twitter links currently visible on the screen at the bottom left corner. And thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you guys next Thursday, 8 p.m. AEST. Have a wonderful night.
Yeah, same time every week except last week. And
until we get Margin Obama on, and then it'll be like 3 a.m. because we have to capitulate.
Exactly.
Yeah.
See you boys.
All right, catch you, lads.